Sam, you going tomorrow? You reckon? What do they gotta do? Not that one?
Kidney.
Oh, kidney.
Well, you know, they messaged and did not relate to them.
Oh, really?
Each started from the.
Oh.
We forgot that. So when they went in there, he just replaced it. Make sure he's always supposed to be in there listening.
Oh, really? Exactly.
So I told him if he wasn't.
Do you know that you're on that timeline now?
Back here anymore, it's just a job. It's got
She makes fun of me. Like, no good.
Got a drink?
Why'd you punch forward? Is it a punchback?
Just getting worse.
Wow.
Yeah, there's. She said you were there, and I was like, oh, so is Katie.
I like the button check. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I got this Christmas.
Very nice.
Especially good.
We're still on time.
All right, we're going to pick up in Genesis chapter 7 this morning. So, what stood out to you in chapter 7, the first few verses that we read on Sunday? Does anybody remember anything from the section?
God gave specific instructions.
Okay, God gave specific instructions. Good. Yep. And the instructions were basically God providing a way of salvation before the judgment began, right?
I would say that we see that obedience equals righteousness.
Okay, good.
At the end of 6, Noah did this. He did all that God commanded, and then verse 1, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation.
Yep. Good. Yeah. So, yeah, his obedience, it was counted to him as faithfulness as well. Yeah.
And it, what he just said of that is righteous before me in this generation. It's not just going out and doing good and being a good person, but he's like being righteous to him and being a godly person.
Good. So his righteousness was directed toward God. Is that what you mean? Like he was following God's instruction, not just being kind to others, but listening to God and obeying his instruction. Good.
Only when we can't begin to imagine what the outcome will be.
Right, yeah. Following before we know the outcome, right? Definitely speaks to Noah's trust and kind of submission to God, that before he probably even knew what rain was, rain had not fallen on the earth, God said there's going to be a flood. There had never been a flood. Noah didn't know what that was going to be, but yet he obeyed, right? Good. So we noticed how often Noah's obedience is emphasized. It says it over and over. So that was definitely a theme in the scripture, is Noah's obedience. He was obedient and he did everything just as God had commanded him.
Just throughout
Yeah.
the story of Noah, we should be able to look at it and understand the influence that he had over his family.
Okay. yeah.
of his sons and his daughter-in-laws,
Mm-hmm.
for them to follow and to be obedient and be righteous also.
Right, and that is a picture of what obedience looks like, faithful obedience looks like when the culture around you is, moving in the opposite direction. Good. Anything else? We mentioned a couple of kind of gospel themes. Does anybody remember what those were? Hints of the gospel?
One of my big gospel moments is that, yes, Noah follows everything that the Lord says, and he is counted as righteous. Those who go with him into the ark, it doesn't say that they obeyed perfectly, that they go in based on Noah's righteousness. It's
Good, yeah. And so, yeah, the kind of coming full circle with, it's not us and our righteousness and our obedience that earns us a spot in God's family and in the recipients of his blessings. Rather, it is Jesus, right? So in this instance, Noah is kind of a type of Jesus where he preserves his family because of his righteousness. Good. We talked a little bit also about the ark and how it's kind of that picture of salvation as well, like those who are in the ark obediently are saved through the flood. Judgment is coming. God provides that way of escape. Those inside are saved. Those outside perish. The ark does not save because Noah is perfect. Rather, the ark saves because God provides it. Like God gave instruction, and so likewise, salvation is found in Christ, right? Those that are in Christ are going to be saved. Those outside of Christ will perish. So,
and they pass through the water. Did somebody already say that?
nope. And 1 Peter 3:21 draws that direct application corresponding to that. Now, baptism saves you. The removal of dirt from the flesh, but the appeal to God for a clean conscience. So in that instance, Noah, that becomes kind of a pattern, like saved through the water. Okay, good overview. Let's jump into verses 17 through 24. We're going to see the universal and complete judgment of God. So, starting in verse 17, for 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. This is chapter 7, by the way. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. Okay, so what stood out to you there? Tim?
I've never thought this before reading this, but I was thinking of how some people are okay with sprinkling baptism. And I was just thinking, God didn't, like you can spray off a car with a hose and rinse it off. In a sense, sprinkling and raining on that car. So I don't know, just an interesting parallel with baptism is submersion. And God submerges the planet. He doesn't spray it off, he buries it.
Yeah.
In water.
Yeah. Yeah, total immersion here, right? For sure. And, let's see, I just had a thought that like just flitted by. Now I can't think of what I was gonna say. The whole 1 Peter 3 analogy. So this flood is cleansing all of the wickedness, right? So it's the wickedness that caused this. It's the wickedness that is wiped out. And in baptism, it is an appeal to God for a clean conscience, right? So I want God's Spirit to inform my conscience. So I want it to get rid of all of the wickedness and the evil and wash that away so that I'm left with this clean conscience. Not only do I not have guilt, but I also have this new sense of right and wrong because God's Spirit is informing me and motivating me. So just kind of also that picture came to mind too. Good. Yeah, Dawson.
But back to what Tim was saying, that burying the old man,
Mhm.
burying,
Yep.
dead to sin, dead.
Right.
Everything that was sinful died.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens with our baptism. We, the old man of sin dies, then we're reborn.
Good. Yep. Excellent. Okay. What else did you notice?
I have a silly one, just
Yep.
now getting into the zoo, and they're always like, this is how much an elephant and a tiger eats and everything else, but like they were on the ark for 150 days. So like the amount of food needed or God provided,
Yeah.
because like the animals got on the ark and like clearly God was in all of that, so I don't know, I just thought that was interesting that now looking at it, reading it this time, like he provided clearly somehow.
Yep. Good. Yeah, either there was a miraculous intervention or God somehow instructed Noah and provided, you know?
Like the amount of meat like a tiger eats a day or whatever, like,
Right.
you know, it'd be 2 by 2s, but then you'd also need, I don't know how many squirrels or something for a tiger to eat.
Right. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. But God shut up the mouths of the lions for Daniel, so, right?
How many here has been to the ark since that? It's amazing to see the concept of how they fed them, and at least a possibility of how they fed them on that ark.
Mhm.
It's amazing to see the thought and the engineering that went into that to figure that out. Not saying that God couldn't just provided it without that.
Right, yeah.
But it just, for those who might want to argue with that, they've kind of come up with.
Yeah, right? Yeah, if we can think of a way that it could be done, then maybe we should, not dismiss it, right? Good. What else? What else stood out to you in that section?
My initial thought was, that's pretty depressing.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, 150 days on the earth,
Okay.
in the ark. where
Yeah.
You have a lot of work to do, and it's nothing but rain and stuff, I don't know, it's just, and you're not sure what's happening.
Yeah. Not a carnival cruise.
No.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say that God told them how long it would be, right?
Right. That's
So,
true.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah. How about now?
On top of her point, like, they had no end in sight to even.
Yeah. Can we send out the birds again? How about now? Yep. Yeah, I was gonna ask, what emotions does this section evoke? Obviously, some just claustrophobia and being locked in this box for half a year, nearly. Yeah, Tim?
Something else is that water, I don't know, we just read this part of this next, but the water all goes back into the earth, but it is still accessible to us in life. Like, we still need water to survive. So you have, if your baptism is your big cleansing, you do still have
Yep, yep. Yeah, really good. Yeah, there's like this danger of water. You don't want to be just lost at sea, but then there's also complete necessity of it as well for life. Okay. What was the most common theme of that section? Looking back through it. What was the message repeated?
The completeness of every living thing, over and
Yeah.
all, every.
Right?
The waters prevailed 3 times.
Yep. Yeah. Verse 21 says, every living thing that moved on the land perished. Verse 22 says, everything that had breath of life in its nostrils died. Verse 23, every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out, people and animals. 3 times it emphasizes the totality of the destruction. And this is a time when literature didn't repeat things, right? Like, it was very concise, very efficient. You didn't want to use up precious scroll space to say something over and over. You said it once, maybe you emphasized it by saying one word twice, but this is, 3 verses that basically say the same thing every single time. So what do you think this teaches about the seriousness of sin or judgment? Why do you think it would be pictured this way?
To me, it seems like it's making a point emphasizing the depth that's involved, so that as I'm reviewing the text, I don't look at it and go, well, they may have meant something else. Like, they were being dramatic with the way they said it. Here it says, like, everything died, everything died, everything died.
Right, yeah, good, yeah.
It's 4 times that it says the waters prevailed. Like, the water is winning, nature is winning, and then the first verse of chapter 8 says, but God.
Good.
So it's showing God's power over nature here.
Yeah, right, good. Yeah, Landon?
And I think it's super helpful for us now, especially with, in the New Testament, how God is portrayed as such a God of love and forgiveness. We can now go back on it and say, He is a God of love and forgiveness, but He also will judge completely, and we need to take it seriously.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you see God's character towards sin and evil, and His justice, but then also His mercy, right? Yeah, Lucy?
And I think knowing that power, Noah was a believer of God, he was righteous, and he knew of God's power and trusted Him. But we don't know about his family, if they trusted God or if they had that belief in God. And so Noah was probably scared because it was rain, it was floods, first time he received that. But imagine how his family was feeling when they weren't necessarily as righteous as him, or maybe not as believing in God as him. Maybe they had that more fear of, oh my goodness, will we die?
Yeah.
Is Noah crazy?
Right. Good point. Yeah. Yeah, there was even at any point, I would think, as you're teetering on the top of the water, is this going to give way, right? Like, is God going to see this all the way through? And as they go higher and higher and see less and less land that they can, like, swim to or find harbor on, and then finally there's nothing but water as far as the eye can see. Like, wow, that would be unnerving, to not know for sure if this box is going to hold out.
I thought a lot about how we have talked about Moses writing this and to the Israelites and them saying over and over, like, He destroyed it all. Like, God followed through. This is what He said He was going to do. This is what He did. It was complete. It was complete. But God remembered Noah. Like, I think of Moses writing this and Moses talking to the Israelites and just kind of like, God remembered Noah. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing the pattern as we look back over time? And Israelites still continued their path, but they kept trying, God kept trying to bring them back that I followed through. This is the pattern. This is what I do. And so, you think it was written for the Israelites. Then you think into the New Testament it was written, and then written to us today that, yeah, it's scary. You don't know if this boat's going to land. You don't know where life is going to take you at the end of the year. But if you walk with God, He's there.
Good, yeah. Think about so far the stories we have in history up to Genesis 7, right? You've got Adam and Eve, they failed. Murder. Now we have this guy or the sons of God and the evil that the intermarrying with the daughters of men, and that led to a fever pitch of evil, and now we have judgment again. So far in Scripture we see man failing, God judging almost totally, but providing a little bit of mercy, right? So it's kind of interesting to see that pattern and to think, okay, when if Moses is the one writing this, recording it, God's giving it to him, and he's, or whatever the verbal tradition, but this is kind of being presented. Think of this being presented to a bunch of people who have been living under Egyptian bondage, and they need to know the real worldview because they've heard the Egyptian worldview for so many years. Now what are they seeing? They're seeing God's holiness, how He judges sin, and how He is also merciful.
Right, I like the parallel of the one window gave them a view to their hope that they had, the only hope. So the one Jesus that we have to look to give us our hope.
Good, yeah. Yeah. Good, yeah. Excellent. Okay, so a little bit of application here. How does understanding God's judgment deepen our appreciation for His grace? So how does this color grace for us?
God can't destroy us.
Yeah.
We can't earn it. We can't deserve it. It's through His mercy and grace that He gives us the opportunity. He continues to open doors, no matter how many brick walls I try to put my head through.
Right?
He's trying to help me change course and adjust and grow.
Yeah. Yep. One thing that we were talking about, I think after the last class, was it fair for God to create all these people that He knew would have evil, only evil, continually on their mind and heart, just to wipe them out and destroy them? Is that fair? Was that fair of God? Yeah.
So I would take issue with that statement.
Okay.
He puts a free will in every man. Every man can choose whether he is going to sin or be righteous before Him. So I take issue with the premise of that.
Okay. So you reject the premise of the question, which is that God created them to be evil,
That's
right?
He did not.
Right.
He did not.
So I totally get that. So if I modify the question, but God knew what their free will choice would be, and He still created them so that He could destroy them. So is that fair? Yeah.
What I think about is when Adam and Eve sinned, I think the sin they sin is what is affecting
Mm-hmm.
because it spread through the whole world. And it's maybe it's a technology.
Right?
Because that is what, because every time I think about it, how are we sinners? Because even sometimes there's some things you don't want to do, and you see somebody who just offended you, and you start thinking, oh, my bad. So keep on coming.
Yeah.
But because of Christ, we are able to overcome that feelings.
Yep.
So that's the way I just think that is. But God has given us free will to choose which one we should choose to be right or wrong.
Yeah.
We are the one we now decide which one to choose. Am I going the right way or the wrong way?
Good. Yeah, and the way Paul worded that in Romans 5 was, therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, in this way death came to all people because all sinned. So I know, like, in my own kind of thinking and kind of meditating about this idea, like, what came first? You know, we asked the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, what came first, the sinner or the sin? Do we sin because we're sinners? Or are we sinners because we sin? And can you separate the two, right? This says death came to all people because all sinned, right? So I tend to lean toward, look, we sinned, and so we are sinners. But yeah, I don't know if that muddies the water even more, but Dawson and then
I don't mean to ride that horse again.
Okay.
God did not create us so he could destroy us.
Okay.
He created us and said it is good. Right?
Right?
When and very good. And,
Yeah.
and then sin enters the world, or enters. And
Yes.
Then same as today. We are saved, going back to your question a minute ago, what about grace? How's it going? It's grace today, just like it was grace for Noah. It was grace for us today to actually believe and to live righteous before him.
Yep.
We are allowed to do that. He makes that path and makes that available to us.
Good. Yep. April.
I hope I'm gonna say this right.
Mm-hmm.
I've struggled with this at times because I don't believe that God created us to destroy us. I don't necessarily think God was surprised with what happened, but I struggle thinking that God created Cain knowing he was gonna murder somebody. That is God going, this is the free will in front of them. This is the path. I'm hoping they will let me help them follow. And when they don't, he adjusts and he helps us again. So I guess what I struggle with is God is all-knowing. Absolutely. And I don't think he created Cain to murder, Judas to betray. So how do we God gave us free will. God knows everything. But also, I guess to me, I'm thinking, I see God going, that was the wrong one. Okay, let's see if she adjusts. So, I don't know if I'm making sense. I guess because I'm afraid to say that God knows possible outcomes. But because I have free will, I'm constantly changing what those outcomes will be. And so he's then adjusting and trying to help me continue to get back on that path.
Good. Yeah. Kind of the providence of God interacting with the free will of man, and God having foreknowledge, but also, you know, walking alongside us, trying to help us make the right decisions. Kind of in that, is that maybe one way to summarize it? Okay, Tim?
There's a lot of things in the Bible that parallel God, in a sense, is parenting us, and we parallel with how we have kids and parent and that kind of father relationship. So that's kind of where that idea is from. But to have kids, knowing there's a possibility of that not going right, but you have a selfish desire to have a child in a loving relationship and see fruit and see all these good things from that. And it's about a relationship, but you know that it could go the other direction, but you're not causing it to go the other direction if it does. So there must be some value enough in that hope of relationship. So there's something on the other side of eternity that God sees a successful relationship with us must have some value that we can't yet see the other side of. Because we make a similar selfish decision when we choose to have children.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the parent-child relationship and how you enter that uncertain as to the outcome, right? I have also, I feel like this Romans 9 kind of addresses this, and I wrestle with that passage as well. But verse 14 of Romans 9 says, "What shall we say then? Is God unjust? Not at all. For to Moses he says, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. It does not therefore depend on human desire or effort, but on God's mercy." He even says to Pharaoh, "I raised you up for this very purpose, that I might display my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Therefore God has mercy on whom he wants to have mercy, and he hardens whom he wants to harden." Then jump down to verse 22. "What if God, although choosing to show his wrath and make his power known, bore with great patience the objects of his wrath prepared for destruction? What if he did this to make the riches of his glory known to the objects of his mercy, whom he prepared in advance for glory, even us whom he also called, not only from the Jews, but also from the Gentiles?" And he says things like this to Hosea, "I will call them my people who are not my people. I will call her my beloved one, who is not my loved one." And in the very place where it said to them, "You're not my people," they're going to be called my people. They'll be called children of the living God. And Isaiah cries out, "Though the number of the Israelites be like the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved, for the Lord will carry out his sentence on earth with speed and finality." Right? So, I know I'm sort of taking that out of context and trying to put it in the context of Genesis, but to me, would we know God's wrath if he only created people that he was going to show mercy toward? How would we know his justice? How would we know his wrath if God only created people that were righteous and that he was going to show mercy toward?
Brad,
Yeah.
if you take an example of what you just read there about Pharaoh,
Yeah.
he had 10 opportunities.
Right.
And if he would have turned, God would have been glorified. In the fact that he didn't, God was still glorified. It was still going to be to his glory, no matter what choice man made.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that might be a key principle, that if you obey him, God shows his mercy. If you don't, if you choose not to, God shows his mercy to those who did submit to him, right? And so God knew that when he made Pharaoh, he was going to give him lots of opportunity to obey, right? 10 chances to obey and submit to God's will. And so that shows his mercy. So the very fact, so it sounds really bleak to say that God would create people he knew were going to rebel and that he would destroy with a flood. But it also speaks to his mercy that God would still create people and give them the opportunity to obey even when he knew they were not going to obey. So it's kind of the glass half full, glass half empty. Yeah, the half empty part is God knew that he was going to destroy them. He knows all. But he also still created them and allowed them the opportunity to obey, to submit, and to see. And even in destruction, they show us today that God is just and merciful. So God accomplishes his will either way. So I'm still wrestling with all that, but in my mind, that tends to kind of show the picture of God. Yeah.
No matter, throughout time, no matter what individual we look at, there's a pattern of allowing for growth, allowing for a person to change, allowing for them to obey. No different than us today. It's a matter of growth for us. Okay? If we don't continue to grow and we start reverting, going back the other way, his grace is still there. It's still available. It's our choice to accept it or not and turn our ways from that. And then the payment's going to be made, and could have been made by Jesus Christ. Now you're going to pay the price yourself.
Well, exactly. So the flood reminds us that God hates sin. The cross reminds us of that too. That's how much God hates sin. The flood reminds us that God is merciful. The cross also reminds us that God is merciful. At the cross, the judgment falls not on us, but on Christ, right? On God himself. It reveals both God's holiness and his mercy in one event. And I think you see that in the flood and on the cross. Did I hear somebody say something? Okay, any other observations? Yeah, Lucy.
I had a discussion with Austin a while ago about how some people want to say, oh, the 6 days of creation, they actually happened over a long period of time. Like, time just passed differently, or it didn't rain for 100, or it wasn't flooded for 150 days, it was longer than that. That way, like, Grand Canyon could be created, and all the earth changes could happen. And the same thing with the people, the level of righteousness. God had more control over them back then. He could control Noah to be righteous. But I feel like making those claims really limits God's power. That if you're going to say, oh no, this 6 days happened over a long period of time, that's why scientists think that. Well, that limits God's power. That says, oh, he would have had to take more time. He could have done all 6 days in a second. Like, that's just his way of, that was his plan. And who are we to question that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, and if the point of Genesis was to tell us how many days it took God to make the earth, then I think we miss. Then there's a lot of stuff here that we don't need. So what is the rest of it there for, right? And the whole pattern, there was evening and morning the first day, and I don't know if you were here when we kind of started this discussion, but even the fact that there was evening and morning. How can you have evening and morning without the sun? Because the sun wasn't created until day 4, right? So the poetic nature of that, to me, says this is not about how God did it. It's about who did it and what is his nature. It's not about the details. It's not about the physics. It's about the theology. And so, I mean, I'll listen to either argument, 6 days or 6 eons, right? That's not the point of the passage. It's to show God's character and his nature. Landon, you got a comment?
Well, something that I've heard that kind of explains what Lucy was talking about, and it was kind of like, if God can create a man and a woman fully matured, what makes people think they can't create a world fully matured? That then shows that there have been millions of years. That in the carbon dating, whatever that may be.
Right.
If God can create a full man, mature man, he can make a full mature world ready for us to live in.
Right, yeah, exactly. And the argument of, okay, well, there are stars that are billions of light years away, so if God created it, it would have taken billions of years for that light to travel so that we could see it. We wouldn't be able to see that star if it hadn't been created billions of years ago. Well, maybe. What if God created it and said, all right, I'm gonna pull the light here in an instant instead of over billions of light years, right? So yeah, I think either way, if your goal is to limit God's power, I would not do that. Or if it's just to try and make sense of science, nobody was there to see it, so nobody can confirm 6,000 years ago that they saw the universe pop into existence, or 6 billion years ago that they saw the universe pop into existence. So we can only try and guess. And so why would you break friendships, fellowship, or salvation over somebody's guess as to what exactly Genesis is saying about the evening and the morning and day one, right? Yeah, Lucy.
And I think it goes back to the end of the Gospels where, I don't remember who wrote it, but it said, and Jesus did many more miraculous things.
John, yeah.
Like, the Bible is what we need to know. A bunch of other stuff happened over that 2,000 years, but this is what we need to know to be guided to the same.
Excellent. Yeah. This is not the exhaustive annals of history, right? It is God's revelation of what we need for life and godliness. Okay, we're pretty much out of time. Any last minute thoughts or anything?
Quick comment, Brad.
Yes, sir.
On April's question, and I had a brief conversation today with somebody about this, about it was sort of analogous to that discussion we were having about people who haven't heard the gospel and their faith, that kind of thing. Pointed to Romans 1, but I think it also applies here. The other passage that comes to mind is, and this isn't just like a cop-out, but I think it helps like tie the loop a little bit. In Isaiah 55, when God says, "For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." And having kind of a humility there, and that I don't understand, but at the same time there's the trust and the faith that we have to put in God, that everything that He writes about Himself is He is just, He is righteous. We know He's the final judge. So whatever that judgment is, right? Like having faith that maybe I don't have a full understanding of what's going on and why He does things, why certain people are created, judged a certain way, but we have ultimate faith in Him, right?
Yeah, good. Excellent. All right. I was hoping to get into chapter 8, but we'll start that on Wednesday, Lord willing.